All right, guys, welcome. Maybe a minute or two late, but we finally there. Welcome to this afternoon's lesson of Grade 11 IT. My name is Mr. Freeman, and we're going to carry on with the same topic I've started on Friday. So we're working through a real prac exam from November last year. We're just skipping question 2, which is the database question that I probably will revisit sometime next term after we've done that database section that we haven't covered yet. So today we're going to do part 2 of question 3, and I see now, apologies, I'm doing the same typo as yesterday. Question 3 is not general programming skills, that's question 1. Question 3 is your methods, your functions and procedures, and in this specific exam, the functions and procedures are combined with arrays. As I said before, next in November, it may be combined with reading from text files. Those things change as they go along. It's not cast in stone that your methods would be with arrays, but it usually is. Okay, so just there at the bottom, and I'll show that link again at the end of my lesson. That's the bit.ly link if you want to get all the DBE textbooks and data files, as well as the data files for this question paper. I've uploaded question 3 already, and tonight I will upload question 4 that we will do tomorrow and Friday. Okay, so let's take a look. So yesterday we started with question 3, the methods and parallel arrays, and we did the first 2 sub-questions. The first one was just a simple procedure displaying data from parallel arrays. So if you recall from yesterday, this project file already has the 2 parallel arrays declared, and the data is already filled in. So this was for that Tour de France bicycle race, and the one array has all the stage names where the riders would end that day, so the name of the town that they would end that day, and the corresponding parallel array is the distance for each and every stage. So we call them parallel arrays because the 2 arrays, they connected. So for position 5 of the one array is connected to position 5 of the second array. So if position 5 is the one town where we will end, then the second array is the distance of that route that day. Okay, so that's why we call them parallel arrays. And so we displayed all of that data, and then we went on to sort those parallel arrays alphabetically based on the locations of that. Okay, so today we're going to carry on and finish this hopefully. And we're going to do question 3.3, where we're going to create a function to return the max value of an array. So we're going to look at the distance array and return the distance that was covered that is the highest, so the longest distance. And I'm going to show you how to do that. That's a basic algorithm that you expected to know for the exams. And then the other one, 3.4, is where we will search an array. So somebody will type in the name of the town in an edit, and we will take that edit and we will search the array until we find a match, and then we'll display the corresponding contents of both arrays in there. Okay, so if you're ready for that, I will move on to my exam paper. So it's 3.3 now, and over here is my project. So what we did yesterday is just to show again. So here's my 2 arrays are distances. So that's the actual distance. So 194.5, that correlates, and these are of type real, that correlates with this, oh my word, I don't know how to pronounce that. It's a French word. That correlates with that town in our stage place. Okay, so that's what's given to us. Then what we had to do is we had to create a procedure called display data. And it didn't need any parameters because everything that we did was based on the information stored in the array. So all we had to do is clear that rich edit so that every time a button is clicked, it is nice and cleaned, or every time that this procedure is called, then we clean out the rich edit. It then displays a heading And those #9s, if you don't remember, those are that's just the character to say jump one tab space and between every one of the headings, and then that #13 adds another line. So all we did is we looped through the entire array and simply just displayed every single element from each of the arrays, as well as the number of the stage. It was just the value I. I is just incrementing from 1 to 21 over here. Okay, and then what we had to do, if I can find it, is the button then just simply does one thing. It just calls that procedure. So from here on, whenever the button is clicked, it calls the procedure, and then in the code, it literally jumps to that procedure and executes the code. And once done, it goes back to the button. There's nothing else to do. So it goes back to the form and waits for the next input. And then from there on, we had to do the sorting. And this sorting, this is the basic algorithm for a sorting array. You need to know this off by heart. You need to know that I go from I to the array length -1, that's my outer loop, and then directly inside it, j from I +1 all the way to the end. So that's the inner loop. And for every single instance, we compare the position at I of my array to the position at j of my array. In this case, it was alphabetical, so that's the operator that I used. And if this was the wrong way around, we had to simply swap them. So we swapped the one stage by using a temporary variable, taking any one of the positions, putting it in the temporary variable, and then the one that I've taken, I can now be overwritten with the other position in my array. And then finally, that second position can now be swapped by stemp. And we must not forget to do this for every other array in my parallel array. In this case, I have 2, but you might as well have 3 or 4, and then you have to duplicate all of that. And then all we did here was then to display the sorted array in a loop. Okay, so I'm going to go back to design and start with the next question. So guys, are you ready? Let's do this. 3.3, you need to display the distance of the longest stage in the tour. So pretty basic question. It could have been slightly more complicated if they said you need to display the name of the town where the longest stage occurs. So then you would search or get the highest value based on the distance array, but then return the answer based on the town array. Or what did we call it? Something else. Let's just see here that I don't lie to you at all. It was called the stage place array. But okay, over here, it's fine, easy. I'm going to loop through the array. I'm going to show you how to find the longest stage, and we're simply going to display that longest stage over here at the bottom. How we have to do this is we have to create a function called longest stage, okay? That will determine and return. Remember, it's a function, so I need to return some answer. That returns the distance of the longest stage in my tour, and then my button will simply just call this function, and it would use whatever I've received, either as a string or maybe as a real. We'll see how we go along with this. And then we're going to have to display this, and I can see here we've got to do this in a show message. So this would be a combination of a show message and then calling the function. Okay, so let's start with the function first. So it is, if I want to create a function, because everything will be called from my form, I'm going to go to the private section in my form. And if I want to create a function, I have to call the keyword function and then the name of the stage. Then I need to figure out, do I need additional information? And I don't think so, because all I need to do is get the highest value that is already in an array somewhere. So I don't need any additional information, but I would need to return something, and I'm returning the longest stage. So what do you think we should do there? I'm going to just return the longest stage in the format that it is, and that is a real. So we're going to return a real. Okay, so all we need to do there is just to say, okay, so that's my longest stage, and I'm going to return a real type. Okay, oops, real type over there. It's very similar to declaring a variable. Can you see that? Okay, so you would just declare a variable of type something. Now I'm just declaring a function that would return a certain type. And if I've done this correctly, I should just be able to go Control-Shift-C, and it would automatically create my implementation, which is basically the same as my definition or my declaration. Sorry, this is my definition, except for that I've got the class name in front of it. Okay, so there's my function. So the idea of finding the largest value in an array is quite simple. What we do is we say, let's take the first element of the array and store that in a variable of the type of the array. In this case, it's going to be real. So I'm going to create a variable called our longest stage. Okay, I'm going to make that type real. So there's my longest stage. So by the end of my function, hopefully longest stage will have the value of the longest stage in it, and I can just go in by returning that longest stage. So after my for loop, I would hopefully be able to say something like, oh, there it is. After my loop, I'll be able to say something like result becomes our longest. It's taking its time. Longest stage. Right, so in the middle, I need to find the longest stage so that I can return it over here. So what we do is we take the first position of my array and store that initially in longest array. So I'm going to do that right now. So I'm going to say, okay, let's get the value of my array in position 1 and store it in there. And my array's name is distances. And I'm going to say, I want the first position. Okay, so now I've got something that I can start off with. Now it's very likely, or not very likely, it's very possible that the first position could be the longest array, but it may not be. So what we have to do now is we got to loop through the rest of the array, the rest of the elements. So my loop is going to be a for loop. Why? Because I know the length of my array, and I know I'm going to go all the way to the end because I don't know if the longest distance is perhaps right at the end. So I'm going to loop I from low. Now, usually I would go 1 year, but because I've already taken the first position and stored it in the longest array, I'm going to start with 2. And I'm going to start comparing from 2 all the way to the end and just check if that position's a real value is perhaps not maybe larger than this first position over here. And if it is, well, then I don't have the longest stage, and then I can take that position stage and store it in there so that by the time I've reached the end of my array, I will have the longest distance. So high in this case would simply be the length of the array. We know it's 21, or I could just go length of the name of my array, and that is distances. Okay, so I'm going to do a begin and end here. So for okie dokie, and it didn't create my integer, so I'm going to just do this over here. There's my integer, now it's happy. So I want to now compare what I have currently to the distance at position I of our distances. So I want to say if our longest, which I think could be our longest, if that is actually not longer than the current position. Okay, so if it's smaller than, and what is the current position? I get our distances at position, the current one, which is I. So the very first time, that would be at position 2, so the second one, and then the third one, and so on. So what am I doing here, basically? Let's just show you. I've taken my first value and I stored that into R longest. And then I loop through the rest of the array one at a time. And then I say, okay, take 194. If it is less than 27, then take the 27 and store that into longest. I know it's not the case, so I'm going to skip that. Then I is going to become 3, and I'm going to start comparing again. So 194 compared to 215. Is 194 less than 215? Yes, it is. So now at this point, I need to do something. I need to take the 215 and overwrite my R longest distance so that it no longer contains 194.5, but the new 215. And I'm going to carry on. And so from there on, I'll be comparing 215, which is in longest, with this one, and then 215 with this one. And so we carry on until I find a value that is even larger, and then I just repeat the process. Now 230 is the longest, and we carry on. By the time I reach the end here, I will know that I would have the longest value, which looks like it's 230 over here. Okay, so let's do that. I can find it. So I'm saying if it is smaller, what do I need to do? Well, then what I have in R longest stage is not R longest stage. So I'm going to now overwrite that. I'm going to say R longest stage now becomes the current distance, which is the distance at position I. Make sense? Okay. So by the time I'm done here with my loop, I should have the longest distance. Okay, so that is now returning my longest distance. So if we go back here, create a function called longest stage, that will determine and return the distance of the longest stage. And I believe we've done just that. So now we can carry on with the next question. So on the click for 3.3, so let's go there. So 3.3 longest stage, there's currently nothing in there. What do I do? Let's go back to the question. Call the function longest stage from this button and display the information in a message box. Now, we know that a function cannot be called in a statement on its own because it simply returns something. It's got to be part of something else. And that something else in this case is a show message. And the show message is supposed to show that message. So all I'm going to do is going to go to show message, and then I'm going to type in the longest stage colon space, and then I'm going to call that method, convert the answer that it's returned from a float into a string, and then add my kilometer at the end. So it is simply show message. Okay, and I'm going to start off with saying the longest. What was it? Distance and colon. Let's make absolutely sure. Oh, the longest stage. Okay, well, we've got to rather do exactly the way they want. Some people are picky about it. So distance. I did this twice. Apologies. The longest stage. Okay, so now I'm going to end that string after I've placed my space over there, and now I can call my method, my function. Now the function returns a real. So that's going to be inside a float to string function. Okay, so I'm going to say float to string. Okay, and what am I converting from a float to a string? Well, whatever this function returned. And what is the function called? It's called, I think it was called longest stage. Okay, so in its place, it returns a real, which is the longest stage, and then that value, that 230 that it returns, gets converted to a string and joined to the string over there. And the only other thing I need to do is to add a little tail to that string, which is a space and a km. So space and a km. And that, according to me, should do it. So let's see. Okay, so I'm displaying the data from yesterday. I'm sorting the stages, doesn't really matter. And I'm going to call my longest stage right now. And there we go. The longest stage is 230 kilometers. Happy with that? Any questions? Okay, so this this is just something that you need to, but also remember, just like the sorting algorithm, if I wanted to get the smallest value, same story, it's just my operator will change around. I always get the first position's value, store it into R longest or R shortest or R max or whatever the case may be, and then loop from the second position all the way to the end. Each time comparing what I currently have for longest with the current position. If it's not right, we take that current position and store it in my R longest variable, and right at the end, I simply return that value through result over here. I hope this makes sense, guys. I really do. Anyway, so let's carry on. 3.4. So 3.4 is the search one. So it says here, write code to read the name of a place from the edit. Let's break this into its smaller parts, because I think by just reading this first part of the question, I'm not going to be bothered with anything else. I know I need to read a name of a place. So it's going to be string. It's going to be a variable string, and I've got to get it from an edit. So I'm going to stop right there and do that so long. So I just want to make absolutely sure what is the name of my edit. It's edit search, and it's got to be in this button over here. So I'm going to start off with a variable. And that variable is of type string. So what should we call it? Let's call it sSearch, and it's of type string. Okay, and I'm going to start off by grabbing that string from the edit. So sSearch becomes the edit search dot text. Okay, I think I've answered the first part of that sentence. So write code to read the name of a place from an edit, check. And then search for and display the distance of the stage. Okay, so now I'm searching on the name, I'm searching the one array, but what I'm going to display is the distance of the corresponding parallel array. Okay, so I'm going to search on the places and find that spot, and then carry on from there. So the distance of the stage that ended in that town in a message box as indicated in the screenshot. So there we go. So the distance of stage Nancy is 213.5. So there's a little tail here. It says, note, the search should stop as soon as the place is found. I shouldn't go all the way to the end. If I found Nancy or whoever, it should stop right there, exit my loop, and then display my answer. So normally, if I wanted to search or loop at least through an array, I would use a for loop because I know what the length is. But now suddenly, with this little extra over here, I need to exit. I don't know where in my array I'm going to find this person. So I no longer am in a position to use a for loop. I'm now going to use a while loop. So I'm going to have to create a counter so that I know how to reference every single element in my array, because I want to go array at position something. So that's something I got to create as a counter. I'm going to do that right now and say I count of type integer, and I know my array starts at position 1. What am I doing? Sorry. Should go over there. And I just lost the plot here. And then I'm going to start at position 1. So I will initialize my counter to 1. So I want to create a while loop that does two things here. I want to say I want to not go too far. I want to make sure that I is always at least less than or equal to 21. Because if I haven't found this person, what if somebody put in Disneyland? Okay, and there's no Disneyland in that as a stage. Then with a while loop, it's never going to become true. So it's going to reach the end of my array and want to actually continue. So I need to say, okay, firstly, while my I count is less than or equal to the length of my array. So I'm going to say the length of my R stage places, because that's what I'm searching for. I'm searching for the name of the stage. So as long as I know why I count is less than or equal to length, because every single time in while, if I haven't found this person, I want to increment count so that our I count becomes 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. And eventually I'm hopefully going to find this person, or the stage, sorry, and then I'm going to know what the position is through I count over here. So this first condition says if I don't find my place, then at least exit the while loop in the last position. That's the first thing. And the second one that's very important is they say we need to be able to exit this while loop as soon as I found somebody. And we use Boolean flags for that. I'm going to start off by saying my Boolean flag is false, but the moment I find this place, I'm going to make it true. So I want to say here, and at the same time, okay, some Boolean is still false. Okay, now I've got to create that Boolean. So I'm going to say be found, and it's going to be of type Boolean. And right at the beginning, before I start searching in my while loop, I'm going to say, well, have I found this thing yet? No, I have not. So I'm going to make it false. Whoops. So what I want to say here is I want to say, okay, while I count is less than the length, so I don't want to go further than the array, and at the same time, this be found is still false. Only then, if both of those conditions are met, only then do I carry on searching. The moment that be found is true, I must exit the while loop. That's why I'm using the and not the or, because both of them must be true. So one condition is I count would be somewhere less than the length, but I would have found my Boolean and set it to true. So then I would have a true and false. True and false becomes false, so I exit the while loop. The other scenario is this: I never find this town. I said Disneyland. So this thing never becomes true, but eventually when I reach the end of my array, my I count now becomes more of my length of my array, which is 21, and then that would become the false. And this would be true. False and true is false, and I've managed to exit my while loop. Okay, so that's the idea behind it. Bit complicated. If you didn't follow me, please go through it again. If we have time and you don't understand, please put a chat, ask a question, I'll go through it again. So now I need to convert this comment into my code, which is simply be found and equal to false. And that's got to be like that. And this is Delphi, sorry, 1 equals. Okay, so be found equals false. Or the alternative that you could have done is the not found. That's the other one. Or I think in Delphi we say not. We actually type it out, not found, be found actually. Any one of the two would be fine. Okay. So let's do my begin and end. So what am I doing? Okay, so now I need to actually search for this thing. So I'm in my while loop and I want to say, is the value that I got from my edit, does it match the value from the position I in my R stage? If that is the case, great, I found the person, I make B flag true, and I know what my distance is. And I can exit my while loop. So it's an if statement. So what is my value that was entered? It is S search. And I'm going to say if that is equal to the current stage, which is R stage place at position I count over here. Okay. So if it's the same, I've got my match. So what do we do? Well, the moment I find this, B found must be changed. B found must now become true. That's going to be my little flag that makes this false, and then I go out of my while loop. Okay, because true equals false is false. False equals false is true. The moment I found true, it's true equals false, false, and because it's an AND condition, it immediately exits the while loop over there. So what else do I need to do? Well, I need to obviously just remember my I, but if I don't find this position, so I'm going to say else, if I don't find it, what am I going to do? I'm simply going to increment I count. So I'm going to say inc I count, which makes it one more. Okay, so the idea is if I do find my place, great, make B found true, and else increment I count. And at this stage, at some point, I'm either going to find my stage, or I'm going to reach the end of the array. And I've got a value for B found, and I will have a value for B found at the end. So after my while loop, I now have two scenarios. I've got to show a message to say, okay, the distance of the stage of this town that we found is the following. But if I haven't found this place, I've got to say, oops, sorry, Disneyland was not found. So that's an if statement. So I'm saying if what? Well, I'm going to do it on found. If be found. So if that is true, what do I want to do? I want to say show message. Okay, and what is the message I'm going to display here? The distance of the stage of my town is that length. And I would know what it is because I would have stopped incrementing. So it would be the array at position I and the parallel distance array at position I as well. Okay, so it's going to be first my introductory text. So the distance of the stage at, okay, now I've got to add my town in. So if I found it, I can either use S search or I could use the array stage place at I count. Same difference because I know I found a match. I'm going to use the easier part. So it's ES search. That is a string. And what else do I need to do? And then a space is another space. So is and another space. And then finally, well, not finally, there's a KM at the end. Now I've got to get my distance position at I. Now remember that is a real, so we need to change it from a real into a string. So I'm going to say float to, what is it, str. Yes. What is my value? Now it's the corresponding distance array. So it's R distances, I think it was called. Was it distance? At position, I count. That was my counter. And then I'm going to add to that, there's something, I obviously got something wrong here. I'll check that out now. And add to that is the space and my KM. Okay, so let's just make double sure what the name of my array was. Where's my memory today? It was called, okay, plural. That makes sense because it's lots of distances. It's R distances. So R distances at position my I count over here. Let's make sure. Let's make absolutely sure. Let's see here. I'm saying I'm starting I count at 1. I say while I haven't reached the end of my array and I haven't found my town. I'm saying, okay, if what I'm searching for is the current town, then fantastic, be found true. Else, make I count 1 more. So if the first town is what I found, I will know that I count is 1 because it won't increment there because this is the else spot. So I'm pretty sure that mine will work. Okay, so I've done that part, but I'm not quite finished yet. I now need to add a little else in here. And my else is whoever the town was not found. So I'm going to say else show message. And I want to say, well, what have I searched for? You know, this Disneyland over here. So that was S search plus was not found. Okay. And that should be it. Always go back to your question and make sure that it is correct. So it says there, well, it didn't actually say that I had to say an else statement in the question, does it? It says here, write code to read, we've done that. And then search, we've done that. Of the stage that ended in a message box as indicated in the screenshot, we've done that. The search should stop as soon as the place is found. That's my B flag. We've done that as well. If the town is not found, yes, if the town is not found in the list, a suitable message should be displayed. Now that list over there, that's of course the array that I've been searching. So in my opinion, I think we are done here. So let's test it. Let's see. I haven't had a single error yet, I don't think. Let's see how many errors I'll have right now. Perfect day at the office seems like it. So let's see. I'm going to do all of that. And now we need to search for something. So let's search for something I can pronounce. Well, let's search for Nancy. Now, I haven't done any defensive programming, so I'm going to assume you're typing in case sensitive here. They didn't ask for that, so don't put it in. So I'm going to search for Nancy. Well, let's first search for Disney. And see, search. Disney was not found. That's correct. And now I'm going to search for Nancy and search, and fantastic. The distance of the stage at Nancy is 213.5, and there we go. I got the corresponding value from my parallel array. Guys, I hope I didn't go too quickly. There's still 5 minutes to go over here. If there's anybody with a question, please tell me now so we can just explain that again. If anything over here didn't make sense, shout now, please. Okay, well, I think everybody is happy with that. So then it's probably not going to be the full 45 minutes, but I do want to end off with saying what we're going to do tomorrow. So we are now finished with question 3. So we've done question 1, the basic programming techniques. Question 3, that's the methods, and we used arrays for that. So tomorrow, the question 4, and on Friday, we're going to do the question 4, which is typically the problem-solving question. So where we give you sort of almost an open-ended question where you have to do certain things. One of the things we're going to read from a text file. Now, we should be able to do that. That's not a big problem solver. So hopefully we're going to solve a problem in the second part on Friday. So tomorrow, basic, we're just going to consolidate, answer this question by reading delimited text files. We're going to extract the tokens, and then we're going to output the results based on the value of those tokens. And then on Friday, perhaps, we will do a bit of problem solving with whatever we read from the text file. Okay, so there's the link again. If you don't have it, please take a picture now or write it down pretty quickly. In there, there's the data. So I want you to now go on your own and see if you can complete this question 3. Tonight, I will add the question 4 data file for you. And then right at the end, over the weekend, I will upload the answer files if you're still struggling and you didn't get a chance to give me a shout out. Okay, guys, that's it from me. I'll see you tomorrow afternoon at 5 o'clock. Goodbye.